And the moment you say you can't be an entrepreneur when you are employed, you are at the back of that coin saying you can't be an entrepreneur when you are unemployed. So I want to first dispel the myth that when you look at these two things, they are necessarily mutually exclusive. I know many entrepreneurs who are in employment. I know many who started off their businesses while still in gainful employment. And once the business reached the level, which is what I always advise, of being able to pay a salary to the owner that at least matches that which the owner obtains from an employer, then you reach the decision of whether or not to continue in employment or go into a business full-time. So indeed, there is a historical perspective to your question that historically, us Black people in particular, which is the market that you wanted us to talk about today, your rural and semi-urban population, we have never been business people. We have always risen up in the morning. We've gone out into the field to produce our own food. The idea of business in the literal sense is a new innovation that came when taxes were introduced in the country, and therefore Black people from the rural areas were forced to go and seek employment. So if we are to encourage our people to enter this space, we've got to speak quite honestly and brutally frankly about both the challenges and the expertise that is needed in order to start your own business. But the reality of the situation is that the mainstream economy in this country is still in the hands of a few people. It is still in the hands of a tiny minority. And when I'm talking mainstream, I'm talking about the major sectors of the economy. The unfortunate part is that even as government tries to create an environment conducive for our people to enter the mainstream economy, the barriers to entry are just too much. The access to capital is controlled by the very same people, the very same minority who don't want us to enter the mainstream economy, that create a conducive environment for everybody to say, I can start a factory, but then government won't give you money to start a factory. You've got to go to a financing institution for that. And when you go to the financial holders of that financing institution, are owners of factories that manufacture the same product that you want to manufacture. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, my brother, you are running a spaza shop here. I want to establish a spaza shop right next to yours. I don't have money to do so. Please lend me some money to buy a container, bring it in, buy stock, and have everything inside so that I can compete against you. Will you lend that person your money? You won't. You will find ways and means to make it extremely difficult for that person to obtain finance, because once that person is in business, they become a direct competitor to your own business. So the way the market is structured at the moment, the way the economy of this country is structured, makes it a really tall order for what we call the entrepreneurial spirit to brew and ferment and grow amongst our people, because even those of us who have been in this business for decades, we still find it extremely difficult to enter new markets, to grow our existing businesses, to expand our product and service offering. It's an extremely difficult situation for people who were relegated by historical factors into mere pick and shovel people. I think, one of the biggest outcomes of the COVID-19 pandemic, which I hope is an outcome that will come to pass and be realized, is that it cannot be business as usual from here on. We expect to see innovation from the side of government, and we've already had noise, positive noise in that direction. Remember when the Minister of Finance spoke about revitalizing and reinvigorating the spaza shop sector, but only for South African citizens, talking about giving incentives to businesses that prioritize the employment of South African citizens. I think there is a renewed appetite on the part of government to ensure that those of us who have the affinity to go into business do so and are assisted to enter the market. So government is now busy working out various funding instruments for new entrants, for the expansion of existing entrants, for the formalization of those who are largely operating in the informal sector. I think there is positive vibe in that direction. But then politics being politics, you never know. Are we still going to have the same finance minister 6 months, 12 months down the line? Once the pandemic is over, are we still going to be able to sustain that appetite and actually translate it into practical action that's going to ensure that the desired outcome is achieved? That remains debatable. But I also have a problem with an approach that's also extremist in its nature, just like the one where government wanted to create 100 industrialists. I mean, in a population of 58 million, about 50 million of which are black people, out of 50 million, you want 100 super rich black people. For me, that also doesn't work. My approach to business is that the smaller business operations are the biggest creators of job opportunities, because first of all, the first job opportunity that gets created is the one for the person who starts that business, because that person becomes an employee of the business that they start. The fourth industrial revolution. I think in this country, again, we are faced with the sad situation of an expanding inequality gap. Access, let alone exploit. But right now, I had to race on gravel road from my home to my office in town. I have an office at home that I could use to access this meeting, but when I tried to log in and I realized that today our internet has suddenly become like a tortoise, I needed to disconnect, collect everything, drive the 20 kilometers to town so that I can at least have a clearer connection. Now, imagine the amount of money and the time lost doing that. Imagine if I have to do that on a daily basis, whereas I could, just like everybody else, work from home without having to drive anywhere. Imagine the people that don't have the benefit that I have of having an alternative space which has a better internet connection. So we have to start with the basics first. Before we speak about how to leverage the power of the fourth industrial revolution as a business tool, we've got to first speak about the basics, how to ensure universal coverage and universal access for our people to have a decent signal strength, so that whoever is out there in the rural areas and wants to start an online business, they can do so knowing that even the primary market, which is the neighbors around their home, can access an online shop, for instance. One of the things that I enjoy doing is crop production. Can you imagine if I was able to create the same online sales platform that I have for my restaurant for the crops that I produce? And people in rural areas in my own village could actually go online, click on a cabbage and set the quantity and pay via EFT, and I deliver to their home. I mean, that's the ideal situation, and there's power in us being able to do that. But how far are we from leveraging that power when we are struggling to provide basic access? We are still very far away. Now, when we start to enter the realm of marketing, branding and marketing, one of the biggest downfalls of especially young people that enter the realm of business is to enter business, and the primary objective that pervades their thoughts is making money. If you come to me and you're selling something, and your reason for existing as a business person is that you want to make money, I can read it in your pitch. You know, every single individual, even the most uneducated person, can get that vibe, that all that you want to do is to make money off it. But is that what a consumer looks for? A consumer does not look for somebody that wants to make money off them. Nobody wants to help another person make money. Nobody. What a consumer has is a problem that wants to be solved. So when you go out there and you market your business, you market your product, you market your service, market the solution. Speak to this person with the genuine intention to solve the problem that they have. If you offer the service of fixing mobile phone screens, look at the problem of a cracked screen and how cumbersome it is to access the touch screen and all the services, how cumbersome it is to read material that is on the screen for the owner of the screen. So the service that you offer is a service that solves that problem. And then the money becomes a side issue. That once we've solved this problem, because I'm the one with the expertise to solve the problem, then you compensate me for the time that I have spent solving your problem. If I sell a bunch of spinach, if I come to you wanting to make money out of selling my bunch of spinach, it's a hard sell. But if my pitch to you is that spinach has nutrients that boost the immune system, wintertime, COVID-19 pandemic, we hear all over the show, even your most rural person knows that you've got to have a strong immune system in order to fight back at this virus, that even if it does infect you, it is kicked out of the body by your immune system via the natural ability of the body to kick it out. How do you boost that immune system? Part of doing so is to eat nutritious food, which helps your body to build the strength of its immune system. So the bunch of spinach has got nothing to do with COVID-19, but has everything to do with boosting your immune system and solving the problem that I have as a consumer. So your focus to directly answer the focus should always be, what is the challenge that is faced by this consumer and how can I solve that challenge? Now, established brands versus your own brand. It's a huge task, which is only minimized by personalizing the service. Big brands are too big to take care of the small man. Enter that space and portray yourself as a business that takes care of these challenges with a personal face. So sell yourself before you sell your service and your product. And you know, we say that people, especially Africans, are very gregarious people. They love one another. Sell yourself. That's why your demeanor, your approach, your language, the telepathic connection you establish with your targeted buyer is very, very important. Establish that relationship between yourself and the buyer first before you can go to convince the buyer to switch from a trusted brand to your own brand. We think that there's too much of everything, geographical space. There are too many computer shops here. There are many supermarkets. There are many spaza shops. There are many people offering car repair services. Therefore, the market is saturated. If I want to start my own thing, it will not survive because there are just too many of them. Whereas, if there's too many of each of those services, it means that there is a ripe market for them. If you are able to establish yourself and differentiate your service offering, differentiate your product offering, you have people that are already buying that product or service. Whereas if you go into an area where the market is not at the same level of accepting that particular product or service, it then drains your marketing budget because you are trying to induce a non-existent market to buy your product or your service. So it is not a simple exercise of saying, because in Gauteng, because in the Western Cape, there's a higher than average concentration of what I want to do, let me therefore run to rural Eastern Cape and I'll do well there. It doesn't easily translate into that. Have passion. You know, yesterday there's a young person, a 29-year-old lady, who reached out to me and said, I have 10,000 rands. I want to start a business. My first question was, what's your passion? And she was immediate in answering that her passion is cooking. Now I said, make that passion your business. So it's easy when your business is what you are passionate about.